Today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about what you need to start a consulting business.
Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast, and that's facts. Only I can make a change. Slowly take a step today. I will never be the same, cause that's what it takes.
Welcome back to the Your Consulting Business podcast. My name is Russell Pearson. This is episode number 11. And today we're going to be talking about how to actually get started in a consulting business. Now, you may have been in consulting for some period of time, so you may be looking at this from the point of view of how do I move into a new space in a consulting business? But let's start right from the bottom. Let's imagine that you were starting from scratch, or you may be listening to this actually starting from scratch. There may be a situation where you're working within a corporate role and you're wanting to move out and start consulting on your own. Or you're potentially even early stages of any business or any expertise at all, and you're wanting to go, you know what, I want to become a consultant, a solo consultant, a consultant that contracts, a consultant that actually runs their own business rather than going and becoming an employee. So we're not going to be talking about how to become an employee consultant. If you want to do that, look on the job ads, apply and go through the process. But if you'd like to become a consultant that's actually having a consulting business, if you'd like to start a consulting business, that's what today is going to be about. Now, if you're new to the channel, I would love you to subscribe, whether you are listening to this on the audio. If you are, then do it through the podcast platform that you've downloaded off. If you're watching this on YouTube, then subscribe there as well. We love getting our subscribers there because I get to have a few more comments than we do on the podcast. I'd love you to add any commentary in the chat. So if you are new to starting, let me know. Are you starting your business right now? Or are you switching from doing one thing into another? Maybe you're actually working in one sector, you're going to be moving into a new sector, or potentially you've got a corporate role where you've been doing consulting, but you haven't actually run a consulting business. So we're going to talk about a few things today. We're going to be talking about the myths out there, the things that people think that they need to actually start a consulting business, and then what are the things that you actually need to actually become an effective consultant and run a consulting business or practice. All right, so let's get straight into it. So what are the no's, what are the yeses, what are the things that you really need, what are the things you don't need? So I'll start with one of the things that you do need. You need knowledge. You need expertise of some sort. Now, there could be all sorts of ways that you've come by that. That could be experience in a certain sector. Suddenly you have intimate knowledge of that sector. You have an unusual amount of knowledge for that sector. It means you become incredibly valuable as a consultant to that sector. All right, so that's one way, but there are so many different ways that you can move into this space. But knowledge is key. So it could be that you have knowledge and experience of an industry or a sector. All right, so you're understanding of that. You may have knowledge or experience of a process that gets a certain result. Right? You may have knowledge of ways to solve certain problems or achieve certain outcomes. At the end of the day, there'll be knowledge work that you're bringing to the table to help people get from here to there. And then so understanding who are you going to be working with very much comes down to what problems are they currently experiencing, or ideally what symptoms are they experiencing, and where do they want to get to? What are their dreams and aspirations? What are the things that they want right now? Now, consulting to specific sectors, there'll be people talking about consulting to government. There'll be people talking about consulting to defense, to big corporate. But there are all sorts of opportunities to consult to smaller business, so SMEs, small and medium enterprises. There's the opportunity to consult to individuals. So you can be a consultant, absolutely a consultant, and actually help individuals with what they're doing in their lives. So there are many different views on what a consultant is, whether you're a consultant, an advisor, even a coach at certain times. Maybe you just have expertise, but in essence, what it is you have knowledge that is lacking in a certain area, and so you're going to help someone move from here to there. So if you don't have knowledge that you can bring to the table, it's unlikely that you're going to be successful in that consulting journey. So you do need knowledge. Now, knowledge could be your process. Like there are plenty of people who are selling design thinking, innovation techniques, all these different things within businesses, data science in particular. There is still unique knowledge. There is a depth of knowledge there that they're actually working with that they can bring to the table. So consulting is knowledge work in some sort. So if you don't have expertise in some area, then my suggestion would be go and get those expertise and then bring them back. That being said, do you have to know the industry or sector that you're moving into? No, you don't. And I see a lot of hesitation from either new consultants or consultants wanting to shift from one sector to another, where they believe that they need intimate experience of the sector to do the work. They don't, but what they do need is an experience of the knowledge that they're bringing to the table to do the work. So let's say you've been working in innovation, you've been working in all these different sectors, you can certainly bring those processes, those procedures, those methods to the table in another industry. 100%. And what's great about that is often actually getting information from a separate sector will bring competitive ideas into another where they hadn't been even thinking about them before. And so you don't need to have experience within an industry to start in an industry. And in fact, at some point, anyone who started in a sector or an industry did not have experience to do that, which is touches into one of the other myths that I need case studies. I need case studies to show people to prove my worth. Sidebar. Ideally, if you're creating an effective consulting practice, you don't want to be stuck in someone else's sales process. You don't want to be stuck in the client's sales process. You don't want to be chosen as the one that's going to go and do a certain task. You want to be choosing to do that task, which means that if you don't have a sales process, if you are lacking of knowing how to have those conversations, then getting that becomes part of actually having a successful business. Now, I'll talk about some of those things today, but if you are interested in the model itself, the sales process, so you can having some of those better conversations and get some of those better clients, even if you've not had experience within a sector, then that's the sort of work we do in the Forge Business Program. More than happy to talk to you about that. Again, put it in the comments if you're interested. So, do you need to have case studies? You don't, okay? But you do need to have knowledge about how to apply these things. Now, why don't you have to have case studies? Because consulting is conversations. Consulting is, a large part of consulting is relationship. But having the conversations with your buyer, having the conversations with the people that you're about to do some work with, the understanding of them, their problems, where they're at, where they want to go, and ways that they can achieve that become the authority building piece. The conversation itself actually creates the authority, right? So there are all sorts of ways to engage someone to do work with you, but the first point is what are the symptoms they're suffering from? And if you understand those, people are willing to listen and they're willing to have more of a conversation. Or tell me more about that, tell me more about that, tell me more about that. And they don't need you to be providing case studies necessarily. Now, having case studies is great. If you can actually go, well, this is very much similar to this other situation, or typically this is what I find happens. They're great conversation additions, but you don't require them to actually get started. If that was the case, then no one would ever get started, right? This is not fake it till you make it stuff. I just want to make a point on that. We're not faking it till we make it. We have unique knowledge. We have a depth of knowledge which we're bringing to the table that's going to enable someone to make a transformation. They're going to be able to go from here to there. We're not faking any of that. We've done that before in different situations. We've used this knowledge in some way, shape, or form. Now, if we don't have that knowledge, we may need to go and get it first before we bring it to the table, because the last thing I want to see is ineffective consultants out there in the wild. I don't want you starting a business unless you are going to be effective. I want the entire industry of consultants and advisors to actually continue to be growing as a trusted entity, to be a trusted option for people to bring into their lives to get transformations, to get outcomes. And so if you're coming in this with the idea of fake it till you make it, my suggestion is not to do that. Go away, get some understanding of something unique you can bring to the table. Does that mean you need to create a product? No. Does it mean you need to define a service? Not necessarily. But you do need to have an understanding of what are the problems and symptoms that people experience and where they want to go. And that does actually get into my second point. Number one, you do need expertise. You don't need case studies, right? You don't even need the experience within a sector. On the flip side, you do need an understanding. So number two is you need an understanding of the client. Now, often when you move into a sector, or if you're starting a consulting business, you might not have an understanding of the client. You might think you do. In fact, that actually happens more than anything. There's I think they need this, they need to change their ways, but they haven't actually had those conversations to understand really what's going on in their world. So having an understanding of the place where you're going to be doing your work is how you get consulting business. It's also how you do very good work, is by understanding the starting point that these people are at and where they want to go. So understanding the path for transformation becomes one where, if you don't have an understanding, there is a very, very simple step to take. So if you're looking at a sector, you look, I don't understand it yet. I think I need experience in it. I really need to spend some time in there, maybe a few years, then I'll be ready to consult. Just hold your horses for a second and let's step back and go, what's a faster way? What's a more effective way? All right, well, we can go and speak to people who would be ideal buyers within the sector and just interview them. Just speak to these people. What are the challenges they're experiencing? What are the outcomes they want? What do they want different than what's currently happening? And through the process of interviewing, you will start to hear things. Not only will you hear specific things that they don't want, specific things that they do want, but you'll hear specific language that they use, which is very, very much industry or sector based. Now, when I say industry and sector, just understand that I mean, any type of entity. So it could be an individual, it could be an organization. It doesn't have to be business. We're not just talking about business. I want you to think more broadly than that. But what are the problems? What are the symptoms? What are the outcomes? What is the language they're using to describe them? And you start to get that information. Now, you might talk to 3 people and you've got a little bit of information. If you talk to 2 people, you'll not find a trend, because you need at least 3 people to actually find a trend. So at least speak to 3 people. It's a really nice, quick start. But my suggestion would be speak to 5 to 10 individuals that are in the space who would ideally be the people you would be speaking to that would want to buy. Talk about the challenges and opportunities. Find things that align to your expertise. Find the things that you know that you will be able to solve. Decide, are these problems I want to solve? Because everything here is a choice. And then step back and start looking at a framework. What are the things that I want to focus on? What is the triangle of activities that I want to look at? What are these 3 problems? What are the 3 outcomes? And then you can bring them back to another 5 or 10 people and go, I'm thinking of creating something along this line. And you start mentioning, you go, do you feel like this is in the right ballpark for what you're experiencing? And you might find they say, not right now, but I have experienced it in the past. And all you're looking for is a trend of yes. They may give you great information, which is, well, 2 of those things are accurate, but the 3rd one's not. And if you start to get a trend of that information, and by trend I mean more than one person, more than 2 people saying it, then you're going to be really doing proper market research, even though you've got a very small number, and you can really start to understand the market. Now, the more people you work with, the more you'll understand. And often I work with people who are doing e-commerce work, for instance, and they the challenge for them is they're not speaking to anybody through the process, because someone's coming into a website, they're selecting something on their own and they're buying it, they're making the buying decision on their own. And because they don't have that experience to speak to these people, often those e-commerce businesses, especially at the start, are flawed because they don't have a real understanding of the market. So I suggest anyone who's moving into e-commerce to speak to at least 100 people. Try to do the manual process of sales with those people first before you automate it into an e-commerce solution. Now, the same thing happens with consultants. The same thing happens with advisors. You speak to 5 to get a sense. You speak to 10 to get a better understanding. You might speak to another 5 to 10 to check that your work is right, to check that the thoughts and ideas that you had are right, and whether that would be something that would be valuable for them. You're having those conversations. But you really want 100, even 200 of these conversations to get a good sense of the market language, to get a good sense of the market opportunity and the challenges that they're currently facing. So context. You want to be having these conversations on a regular basis. So you need knowledge, right? You need a knowledge, you need expertise, you need an ability to help someone transform from here to there. If you have that, fantastic. If you're moving into a new sector and you're bringing it along, really you've got to go, how do I go about understanding this sector? Well, I go about understanding this sector through conversations which will actually move on to a point I'm going to tell you on number 3 in a minute. But you've got to have these conversations. It's a conversational sale almost all of the time. Consultants really should be charging more than $1,000 for their work because it is of high value. It's transformational. Now, consultants out there who are listening to this might be going, $1,000? Yeah, that's nothing. That's chicken change. Chicken change. I think I just mashed 2 metaphors there. But it's chicken feed and it's chump change, right? So they may be selling hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, right? So that's absolutely fine. But what I'm saying is that we're not having some e-commerce buy off the shelf supermarket type sale. That's not what this is, which means that it will almost always require some form of conversation to get to yes. And to ideally, if you're doing it well, collaborate with the client so that it's much easier to get that yes. If you're interested in how you go about having that conversation and the collaboration, just ask me how. All right, I'll show you. So you got your knowledge, you've got your understanding. What else don't you need? Let's look on the other side. So, excuse me, we've already said that you don't need the case studies. You don't necessarily need the internal experience with working with that particular sector. But you do need to have an experience and a knowledge of how you can help someone transform. But one of the other things you don't need that a lot of people think you do need is a website. Now, websites in particular can actually get in the way. Is it useful to have a website? Most of the time, yes, if it's a good website. But you don't need a website to start. My recommendation would be, instead of having a website, even instead of having a business card, just have a LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn has done some amazing things around search engine optimization to the point where a lot of consultants, when I'm looking for them, I don't even find their website, even if they have it, because it's not a great website. It hasn't been tuned for search engine optimization. But what I do find is their LinkedIn profile. And so now more than ever, people are using LinkedIn for research. They're researching you there rather than actually researching you through your website. Now they may look at your website if it's there as well. But if you don't have the time, if you don't have the funds to invest in a good quality website, my suggestion would be, for the short term, don't do it, and actually just put a little bit of time into your LinkedIn profile. Not really even to prove your authority, not even to prove your expertise, but to give them a sense that when they go there, yes, what I'm reading here, what I'm seeing here is accurate to the perception I have in my head. In other words, this is what I was looking for, and this is what I've got. So LinkedIn profile would probably be the way to go. And to that point, even with business cards these days, I love a business card. I used to work on business cards all the time. Business cards are beautiful things, and I love to accept a business card. But these days, it is as easy to connect with through LinkedIn or something like that, and then you've got a digital connection that's got far more contact opportunities than the business card ever had. All right, so and that's not talking to those promo people who have the business cards that have got videos and audio and all the cool stuff, all the little gadgets. To about a standard business card on a piece of card. All right, so you don't need websites. You don't need case studies. You don't need business cards. You do need knowledge, expertise. You do need an understanding of the market that you're going to speak to. And finally, the only thing that I would suggest investing in right at the start, other than looking the part, is a phone. All right, so it sounds ridiculous. Almost everybody I know will have a phone of some sort. And so this device, even with the cracks that it's got in it, is the most useful thing for a consulting business. Your ability to take this, store data, contact a person when you want to contact them, and have the conversation is the key to starting a consulting business. If you're able to call someone and have the conversation, you can make a sale. And so you don't need to be doing advertising. You don't need to be spending a lot of money on websites. You don't even need to have the collateral like a business card or all these other assets. You don't need to do all these things. You don't need to make product. You don't need to make software. That's one I hear a lot. We're going to create this software opportunity before we've even spoken to the market. You don't need to do all these things. All you need to do is have a contact for the particular sector or a list of names that you want to speak to about the challenges that they've got, the opportunities that they want, and really have those conversations to get them there. If you can do that, if you can come in with some expertise, ideally some unique perspective, some knowledge that your client is lacking, then you're going to potentially help them get from here to there. If you have a process around helping them get from here to there, it's even better, right? Because you want to understand that just telling someone something is not transformational. How do you help them take the steps to actually get to where they want to be? Understanding in itself is the key to getting work in a consulting business and practice. How do you understand the market? And even when you don't understand the market, how do you have those conversations? Well, it's the same as whether you're on a digital platform, whether you're live streaming, whether you're speaking to them on a Zoom style thing or Teams or whatever you're using for video conference. The conversation is the key to starting, maintaining, and growing a consulting business. So don't forget, and don't discount, the power of this device. My name's Russell Pearson. I work in this space, right? I help consultants very much like you, no matter what period of your business you're in. You could be in a renaissance period of your business where you're refreshing it and you're changing it and you're getting neater with the messaging you've got, and you're sharpening the saw about improving the business. You could be that renaissance, or you could be in the medieval stage, starting the business. It's a little bit messy, but there is money to be made. There is opportunity to capture. Or you could be actually advancing it into another space where you're really turning it into a business. You're reducing the amount of hours you're working, but you're improving your profits. You're multiplying your outcomes. Any one of those stages is good. There are two things that I do. I help people on the strategic side of things, helping them get from here to there. And obviously on the other side, we have the Forge Business Program. And that's where we work with people on a weekly basis to help them put this stuff in place. So if you're interested in that, I'm very easy to find. Reach out on social media. We can have that conversation. But until next time, I would love you to check out consultingbusinesspodcast.com. I always forget the tagline, but we'll put it underneath here. So consultingbusinesspodcast.com. You can get resources there. You can also get more episodes of this podcast. And as I said at the start, I'd love you to subscribe wherever you're listening or watching this, so that you can get more episodes just like this one. Until next time, stay passionate. My name is Russell Pearson, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us on Your Consulting Business Podcast. Make sure to click the subscribe button for future updates, and also make sure to go to consultingbusinesspodcast.com for goodies made especially for you by yours truly. I will see you on the site.